We told you yesterday that the big story about this whole, oh gosh, look, Joe Biden might not have his mind together there. That whole story, the big story behind all of it is the realization that every single Democrat in any kind of elected position or leadership position lied, and they continue to lie. They continue to evade the truth and their responsibility for what happened during the Biden administration until they come clean. They're going to be lost. There's no reason to believe them about anything. And that manifests yesterday with Chuck Schumer, the minority leader for the Democrats. And you'll never believe who ripped him apart on the air. Another Chuck Todd. Somebody should tell Chuck he was lying too. Anyway, we'll get to all of that coming up in a sec. Plus, Donald Trump with a remarkable speech in the Middle East, shifting American foreign policy for the next several years, if not decades. And the media is ignoring it. I wonder why. And Pete Buttigieg is out, baby. And not like that. He's running for president, obviously. You can tell because he grew a beard. We're going to get into his big debut in Iowa coming up right now. We're brought to you by Birch Gold. My name is Larry O'Connor, and you can call me Larry. Before I forget, please subscribe to the channel that you're watching right now and like this video. If you could, give us early likes. That's a big deal for us. It builds our audience. And if you've already done that, and you've already subscribed, and if you want to support the channel, go to our audio podcast. We're on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Subscribe there, okay? It's a big deal. It makes a huge difference for us and for the people who keep this show floating, our sponsors. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. This July, there's a global summit of BRICS nations in Rio de Janeiro. Now, the bloc of emerging superpowers represented in BRICS is China, Russia, India, Iran. They're meeting with the goal of displacing the U.S. dollar as the global currency. A lot of news outlets aren't talking about this, but it's a real thing. It's called the Rio Reset. So the BRICS nations push forward now with these plans, and global demand for the U.S. dollar could very well decrease. That brings down the value of the dollar. Brings down the value of your dollars, the dollars that are sitting in your retirement and savings accounts right now. Now, the Rio Reset is going to happen, and whether then that displaces the dollar or not, it's not going to be overnight, but it's just one more step down this path toward potentially inevitable reality. So you need to learn if diversifying your savings into gold is right for you. Birch Gold Group can help you move your hard-earned savings into a tax-sheltered IRA in precious metals. Claim your free info kit on gold by texting my name, Larry, to 989898. They've got an A-plus rating with the Better Business Bureau. They've got thousands of happy customers. Let Birch Gold arm you with a free, no-obligation info kit on owning gold before July and the Rio Reset. Text Larry to 989898. Do that today. Thank you. So Jake Tapper pretty much got ripped a new one yesterday, even by allies in the media, over his attempt to rewrite history with regard to his own participation in lying about Joe Biden and his decline. That was a big part of our show yesterday. We're not going to delve too far into it. Watch that video from yesterday. It lays it all out. But something happened on Jake's network yesterday on CNN that is fascinating to observe. Chuck Schumer, part of the problem, one of the guys who lied, who attacked Republicans for even suggesting that maybe Joe Biden maybe has, missed a step or something. Not only did he destroy and lampoon and attack Republicans for, telling the truth, but now he's never owned up to it. We're told that he was part of the behind-the-scenes effort to get Biden off the ticket. He still hasn't said anything truthful or frank at all about his participation. So he appeared on CNN with Casey Hunt, and believe it or not, he lied. He spent the entire time saying that the Trump administration is trying to defund and bankrupt Medicare and Medicaid. So now watch what happens when Casey Hunt says, well, what about Biden?
I really do want to ask you about something that has been breaking out of CNN. Our Jake Tapper and Alex Thompson have written a book called Original Sin, and they call it a cover-up of Biden's health and his cognition and his fitness, quite frankly, to be president of the United States. You sat next to Biden in the Oval Office February 27th, 2024, just a handful of months before the president took that debate stage. And it was later reported that you and other Democratic leaders were talking before the debate about having a plan. You and Hakeem Jeffries, Nancy Pelosi, Barack Obama. I understand you later denied that that ever happened. But I am curious, I'm interested to know whether the man that you saw sitting there on that couch on that day, you were in there, you saw him up close and personal. Did you really not have any idea that he was not fit to serve a second term?
Casey, we're looking forward. We have the largest Medicaid cut in front of us. We have the whole federal
you're
government
facing all
at
of this
risk.
because you lost a presidential election. And
Look,
is that not Joe Biden's responsibility for deciding to run again?
We're looking forward.
That's it?
That's it.
All right. Senator Chuck Schumer, I know you got to go.
Love that. Love that hard-hitting journalism, Casey Hunt. Oh, is that it? Oh, okay. Well, then I'll just leave it at that. See, but here's what Casey, cute old Casey there, and Chuck Schumer and anyone else working at CNN don't quite get about this entire story. You see, Schumer says that he wants to look ahead and not look in the rearview mirror because he'd rather talk about how Trump is cutting Medicaid. But see, here's the problem. Trump says that's a lie. Republicans say that's a lie. Who are you going to believe? Chuck Schumer right there is caught in one of the most dastardly, monumental lies in modern American history, where we had an incapacitated president. Forget about him being a candidate. See, this book and all the conversation is, wow, he was a terrible candidate. It's why Trump won. It was like, no, I don't give a crap about him being a candidate and how he did in the election. He was president of the United States. And all these people, including Chuck Schumer, said we can't have him on the ticket because we're going to lose. Never then followed through with the next point, which was, and oh, by the way, he shouldn't live in the White House. He shouldn't work in the Oval Office, and he shouldn't have his finger on the button. Because Joe Biden was not just a candidate for the Democrats. He was the president of the United States and the leader of the free world and the commander-in-chief of our armed forces. Troops died under his watch, and they knew he couldn't do the job. And so when Chuck Schumer says, no, I'd rather talk about how Republicans want to cut Medicare and Medicaid, the obvious reaction for us is you are a liar. You lied about Biden, and until you face that reality and give some kind of explanation, even if your explanation is, listen, we hate Trump. We wanted to beat Trump. We were willing to lie about Biden so we could beat Trump. That's honest. That's the truth. But they can't do it. But until someone is willing to step and do that, there is no reason why you or Casey Hunt or any other member of the media or any person on this planet should believe any damn thing they say about anything, whether it's going to rain today or not, or whether the Republicans are going to cut Medicare and Medicaid. I'm not going to answer that question. You caught me in a lie, and I refuse to admit it, and I refuse to answer any questions about it. Let's get back to my talking points. Well, as far as I'm concerned, your talking points are all bullshit because you're a liar, a proven liar, and there's no reason to have you on the air. I mean, that should be what Casey Hunt and CNN does, but instead, how did they finish this up?
Well, I appreciate your time today. We'll see you soon, I hope. Thank you.
Yes, I hope to see you soon so you can lie to me and to all of our viewers again. That's amazing. But this is what's going on CNN right now. And they're promoting the hell out of this book because it's one of their own who wrote it. And they're not even recognizing that as long as they continue to sort of try to blame the White House or Biden or the Democrats, they refuse to acknowledge not only their participation in it and Jake Tapper's participation, but also the fact that they're perpetuating the distrust in the media by continuing to have these Democrats on the air to lie. Because if they lie about that, they'll lie about anything.
The fact that he was only concerned about the optics and not about the fact that the president of the United States might be in cognitive decline, might be mentally impaired, to me speaks volumes about the lack of character of Chuck Schumer. But the idea that we did not know about this for the years leading up to the presidential campaign, we all saw it with our own eyes. Video after video, speech after speech, statement after statement, the Her report. The fact that we have people saying today, oh, I didn't know. We had no idea. is outrageous. That's number one. Number two, the cover-up is outrageous. And number three, people were arguing with a straight face that this man could serve 4 more years until, of course, it became untenable at the debate. Honestly, you know, Jake and Alex have done a great service here. This book needs to be written. These stories need to be told because we've lived through the greatest scandal in modern American political history, the cover-up of the decline of the president, the argument that he could serve 4 more years. If he were in office today, if he had somehow won and were in office today, you'd have the same people on TV today saying, he's fine. So, behind closed doors, he's fine, and you know it.
Yeah, and one other little bit of subtext here for Scott Jennings, who obviously is always marvelous, but at the same time has to sort of walk a tightrope here, considering Jake Tapper, the worst offender of all of this, who's profiting from these lies, is also one of the top anchors on that network. So I get it, Scott. That's the trouble when you're taking a paycheck from people like CNN. But let me give you this context here that probably most people aren't going to pick up on. You see this split screen here, the woman on the right of your screen. Hey, Kevin, you know her name? That's Neera Tanden, isn't it? Isn't that Neera Tanden?
I don't think so.
It's not? Are you sure?
No, I don't think so. I'm not 100% positive, but I'm like 90% sure it's not.
Oh, I thought it was. Thanks for saving me on that because I was quite sure. Oh, you're right. It's not Neera Tanden. I forget what this woman's name is. All right, never mind. But Neera Tanden, the reason I raised Neera Tanden is that she's often on this panel. She's often one of the club there sitting around this table. She's often a CNN commentator who's now, I believe, working back where she started, which was the Center for American Progress. Then she had to take a leave of absence for Center for American Progress because then she went to go work for the Biden White House. She was a senior advisor. Then she was White House staff secretary. Then she was the domestic policy advisor and director of the United States Domestic Policy Council, you know, another one of those money laundering firms where your tax dollars get sent for political action. She's one of the people that they always bring in and comment on this stuff. So the problem is as long as CNN, I'm saying any single person who worked in the Biden White House should not be allowed to be an employee or a guest on any of these political analyst shows unless they are willing to be grilled about their participation in the great lie. Meanwhile, you flip your channel over to MSNBC and one of their primetime shows is hosted by Jen Psaki, who was the architect of the cover-up as the White House press spokesperson. Here's Chuck Schumer. Chuck Schumer, who you just saw, lie to the CNN audience. Here's what he was like earlier in the year, last year, before we all, well, I was about to say before we all knew the truth. We all knew the truth about Joe Biden, but before it was acknowledged openly by Chuck and by his cohorts.
When I talk to President Biden, you know, regularly, or sometimes several times in a week, or usually several times in a week, his mental acuity is great. It's fine. It's as good as it's been over the years. I've been speaking to him for 30 years since we worked on the Brady bill and the assault weapons ban when I was a young congressman. He's fine. All this right-wing propaganda that his mental acuity is declined is wrong. He's going to win the election.
You said in June of last year, in my meetings with President Biden, I found him being command and impressive and wielding influence to make progress on key priorities. But in that same month, Biden apparently did not even recognize George Clooney, a fundraiser. Were you being straight with the American public?
Look, we're just looking forward.
That's all he's got. We're looking forward. By the way, I don't know who that reporter was. For good for him. You said he was fine. You said he was great. You said that he's never been better. And anyone who suggests otherwise is guilty of right-wing propaganda. Were you being truthful with the American people? And the only answer is we're just looking forward. Let me translate that for you because I speak politician. The answer is no, I was not being truthful. I'm a liar. I'm
Hey,
Chuck
Larry?
Schumer. Yes, sir.
That reporter was Manu Raju, and the only reason from CNN, the only
From
reason,
CNN, Manu Raju.
only reason he's doing that is so that he can push Jake Tapper's book.
He's
He wouldn't
helping
ask
Jake.
that otherwise.
Good point, Kevin. Absolutely. And thank you for that. Manu Raju, the only reason he would suddenly ask a tough question. Also, actually, there's two reasons. Kevin, you're right. It's to push Jake Tapper's book. But the other reason is that the lefties, they want to get rid of Chuck Schumer. They're fine going after Chuck Schumer now because they don't like Chuck Schumer. They want AOC to run for his seat. That's the other reason. More Chuck Schumer yesterday lying to you.
Hand was up.
You said in June of last year, in my meetings with
Oh, is that the same clip, Kevin? I think
Yes,
it
sir.
is. Yes, sir, it is. All right. So now here's something remarkable that happened back to the CNN show with Casey Hunt. You saw her say, "Oh, that's it? Okay. Well, love you. We'll see you again. Can't wait to have you back so you can lie to everybody here because you're Chuck Schumer. We don't mind that. In fact, bring your lying buddy Adam Schiff. We have him on all the time, and he told our audience that he had seen evidence about Russian collusion. And well, that was a lie, but we love Adam Schiff too. Schiff and Schumer, you guys can have a primetime show here at CNN if you'd like. We don't care. So then watch what happens next, because Schumer's gone. And as usual, they turn to their panel of experts, and the panel of experts are always Trump haters. Even the one Republican they've got there, is Jonah Goldberg still a Republican? I don't know if he is, but he's a Trump hater too. And Chuck Todd, formerly of NBC News, decides that he's got a different Chuck in his sights. It's Chuck on Chuck crime, baby. Watch Chuck Todd go after Chuck Schumer.
All right, Senator Chuck Schumer, I know you got to go. I appreciate your time today. We'll see you soon, I hope. Thank you.
Take care.
All right. And our panel joins us now. CNN political commentator Jonah Goldberg, the host of the Chuck Toddcast, Chuck Todd, Democratic strategist Paul Begala, Republican pollster Kristen Soltis Anderson, both CNN political commentators. Chuck Todd, go.
He is among the people that are responsible for this. The leaders of the Democratic Party, the staff of the White House. And I have to say, I find everybody now talking to these authors, get out of here. Go home. You're part of the problem. Now you tell us. So I find, the reason why the Democratic Party has less credibility today. Here's an unpopular president, and the Democratic Party has a worse rating than the Republican Party with this catastrophic governance that we've seen over the last 120 days. And yet, why is the Democratic Party in worse shape? Because of this distrust, because of this, frankly, what the public feels as if the party leadership let them down and let this happen. He's as responsible as anybody else. He was a leader in the party. He could have said something sooner.
Yeah, and he didn't. All right, so a couple of things here. First of all, again, I want to reiterate, they're all going after Jay. It's like, my God, Chuck Todd's going after Chuck Schumer. That's huge. Is Chuck Todd changing? Is Chuck Todd finally? No, he's a lefty. And the lefties feel completely empowered to go after Chuck Schumer because they're mad at him for caving on the potential government shutdown a few months ago. That helped Trump. It helped Mike Johnson. It helped Republicans in the House. And Chuck Schumer screwed them. And so now they want to get rid of him. They hate Chuck Schumer. So they're fine going after Chuck Schumer. So don't think that this is some sea change for Chuck Todd, okay? But there's a couple of other little things here at the very beginning that we have to re-examine as Chuck Todd, accidentally stumbles on a piece of honest analysis here. First, watch Casey Hunt as she finishes this interview.
All right, Senator Chuck Schumer, I know you got to go. I appreciate your time today. We'll see you soon, I hope. Thank you.
Take care.
All right. And our panel joins us now.
Look at the rolling eyes. Did you see that move? It's like, okay, thanks, Chuck. Oh, boy, can you believe what this guy just did? Ma'am, if you are dumbfounded by what just came out of your guest's mouth, the most powerful Democrat elected official in Washington, D.C., then why don't you say that to him? She's doing all of these eye-rolling faces. Like she's like, whoa, can you believe the crap he just spewed? Hey, instead of turning to your panel and virtue signaling to the audience that, hey, you get it, you know that he's full of crap. Hey, I got an idea. How about you look at the guest that you've got on the air and say, nobody's buying this, Mr. Senator. And you're embarrassing and insulting me and every one of our viewers. But she tries to have it both ways. Oh, I'm so smart. I'm in the club. I know that he's lying, but I'm still going to glad hand him and give him whatever he wants when he's on my show.
I hope. Thank you.
Take care.
All right. And our panel joins us now. CNN political commentator Jonah Goldberg, the host of the Chuck Toddcast, Chuck Todd.
The guy on the left hates Donald Trump, and the guy on the right hates Donald Trump. Let's see how else this panel goes.
Democratic strategist Paul Begala, Republican pollster Kristen Soltis.
The guy on the left really hates Donald Trump, and the woman on the right, who calls herself a Republican analyst, is also a never Trumper. I don't know if she hates Donald Trump, but she's highly critical of Donald Trump. This is your CNN political panel after that moment. So you know everyone's going to really tell it like it is.
Soltis Anderson, both CNN political commentators. Chuck Todd, go.
He is among the people that are responsible for this. The leaders of the Democratic Party, the staff of the White House. And I have to say, I find everybody now talking to these authors, get out of here.
Okay, so I just feel like it needs to be said because nobody on that panel would certainly say it. And I mean, there's no reason why you should remember this because it was a good 2 years ago. But for the most of the Biden presidency, when Joe Biden was a dithering, bumbling, incompetent, mentally diminished, and physically incapacitated man sitting in the most powerful position in Western civilization, that guy right there was the host of Meet the Press. I know, it's surprising. It's been a while. It hasn't been too long, though. It's only been about 1.5 years or 2 years before he was moved aside for Kristen Welker. He was the host of Meet the Press, not only every Sunday on NBC News, but daily on MSNBC. If only he had some sort of position of influence or power, some sort of, platform, so that he could utilize the resources of the Peacock News Network to actually get to the bottom of this and get to the truth. But I guess he was incapable of that. But I'm glad that he's outraged now. This is outrageous. These people are the problem. These people didn't tell the truth. These people lied. You're a reporter. You have the resources of NBC News and the platform of Meet the Press to use. And you bought it hook, line, and sinker. You just regurgitated their lies. I mean, I don't know what's worse. See, I don't expect much from a politician. I expect politicians to lie to me. You call yourself a reporter. No, excuse me. You call yourself a journalist with a capital J. Well, in my book, the J stands for something else, Chuck, because you accepted it. You bought every single word of what they had to say, and now you feign outrage. Chuck Todd, like Jake Tapper, like Casey Hunt, like everyone else in the corporate legacy media, they are the bigger problem than just a lying politician. Hey, now's your chance to get a Larry mug. I know you saw me drinking out of it earlier. I know you're jealous. So go to store.townhallmedia.com. You can get the Larry mug. You can get a Larry golf shirt. You can get a Larry t-shirt. But you can also get a ton of other great stuff affiliated or directly connected to the content that we've got at Town Hall Media, but also just cool American patriotic stuff that you'll like and enjoy and use on a regular basis. Not only is this mug beautiful, but it's also functional. It can hold liquids, hot liquids or cold liquids, and then you can drink them. See? Form and function. Go to store.townhallmedia.com. Thank you. Pete Buttigieg is running for president, and he's getting an early start of it. He's made a lot of changes in his approach to voters. He appeared in Iowa for a campaign event yesterday, and I don't know, maybe you'll see a difference here. I can certainly tell he's grown a beard. That's right. Pete Buttigieg has a beard. No, not that kind of beard. He doesn't need that. He's out and proud. It's fine. But he's got a beard, and one wonders what's going on here, whether this is some signal to the American electorate that now that he doesn't hold an official position like Secretary of Treasury, he can really just relax and be himself and, be the rugged individualist that he really is. Or maybe some consultant got at his ear and said, listen, Democrats are doing really bad with dudes, with the young male vote. So you've got to relate to them. And you look a little bit like a twerpy little jerk. So maybe grow this beard and you'll look a little more cool. I think it's that. I think there is a political consultant that got in his ear and said, you got to grow a beard to appeal to voters. Because maybe it's me, but I'm seeing this trend here. You got this guy who's clearly running for president. You've got this guy who's clearly running for president. This is the senator from Connecticut, Chris. Oh God, why am I forgetting his last name right now? Kevin, bail me out. Murphy, thank you, Chris Murphy, who's been doing a ton of media. He left his wife and his family. He's shacking up now with a TV producer that he met in D.C. So, because, you know, you're a Democrat, you can do stuff like that, and there's no questions asked. And now that he continues to elevate his media profile, thanks to his new squeeze, who's giving him media advice, suddenly, over the course of the last 6 weeks, you see this growth. He's getting a beard. I'm telling you, these political consultants all play from the same page. They all copy each other. There's nothing new or creative under the sun. And someone told them, hey, you got to grow a beard. It'll make you look more rugged, make you look more cool, and you'll appeal to those guys who listens to podcasts. Don't believe me? I mean, come on. Do you see a trend growing here? They'll take you more seriously. You'll look more mature if you'll get a beard. I think that's a lot of what's going at play here. The other thing that's at play is, let's face it, if Chris Murphy gets the nomination in 2028, if Pete Buttigieg gets the nomination in 2028, well, they're going to face off against this guy who's got a pretty good beard. And I think that's what's really going on here. I think they're trying to equalize the man card over there. Just wait. Kamala Harris is going to stop shaving. Just like her stepdaughter. Anyway, let's get to the substance of Pete Buttigieg's appearance, which, I mean, I'm stretching it to call it substance because I got to tell you, this guy is all manufactured. Everything about Pete Buttigieg is about creating a media profile, creating a icon that everyone can glom onto and see something. Oh, he reminds me of my son. Oh, he reminds me of my nephew. Oh, he reminds me of my brother. Oh, he reminds me of my gay hairdresser. Everything about him is style over substance. The man was the mayor of South Bend, Indiana, and had no accomplishment. If he chose women as a sexual partner, you would never know his name. But because he was an Afghan war veteran and he was gay, suddenly he rose to the top of the ranks. And he raises a lot of money because there's a lot of gay money in the Democratic Party, I assure you. So then they make him Secretary of the Treasury. And for 4 years, all he did was focus on DEI, racial division stuff, while we had railroad derailments and chemical spills. We had an infrastructure at our airports crumbling. We had bridges falling apart. He did nothing on that. He was given like hundreds of billions of dollars to create an infrastructure of electric vehicle charging stations. And by the time he was done after 4 years, there were less than double digits actually manufactured. He did nothing. In fact, our current transportation secretary, Secretary Duffy, has done more in just 3 months of writing the ship at the Department of Transportation than this guy did in his entire tenure there. There is nothing there. There is no substance at all to his resume or to his record, but they love him because he's gay. And that's all you need when you're a Democrat. It takes you quite a bit down the road. So let's get to the substance. What did Pete Buttigieg have to say to make you want to vote for him?
The separation of church and state is a foundational principle of our republic. Our country was founded by people who decided they didn't want to have to live subject to somebody else's interpretation of his own religion. They were, by the way, religious people. But they didn't want to have to live by somebody else's religion. And they did not seek to impose theirs through the mechanisms and the machinery of government on anybody else. A public school is, speaking of democracy, subject to the decisions of a school board that you get to vote people onto or off of. It's part of a democratic process, as should be everything that we pay for with our taxpayer dollars.
Yeah, a couple things here. You worked for an administration who tried to mandate and impose at the federal level gender policies and laws and rules that had boys invading girls' private spaces, and that federal policy overrode anything that any individual school board elected by the people of that community might want for their public schools, pal. So don't tell me about the power of democracy at our local school boards that we get to vote for if all their job is to rubber stamp what you and your left-wing woke DEI pals in Washington, D.C. dictate to them. Because that's exactly what your administration did, and you said nothing about it. Local school boards would love to not have gay kiddie porn in their libraries, but it's your administration's Department of Education that mandated crap like that. What a lying, two-faced, hypocritical jerk, but I'm a big fan otherwise.
Say that as somebody who appreciates religious education. I benefited from religious education. I went to St. Joseph's High School, the Catholic high school in South Bend, Indiana. I got a great education there, but my family never expected for 1 minute that our neighbor on Marquette Avenue would have to pay for it. And this is one of many things going before the courts that affect what's going on in our schools. This other case about being able to take your kid out of this or that one, basically line item veto on any lesson is completely, just in practical terms, completely unmanageable.
Now, he just convoluted and completely twisted the actual policy that's in play before the Supreme Court. And I believe we've talked about it here on the program, but let me just educate you real fast. You heard what he just said. Oh, parents are suddenly going to be able to just remove their kids from the curriculum of any given school. That's outrageous. And what's going on here is that parents forever have been able to opt out their children from sexually explicit lesson plans. I'm sure for most of you where you live right now, you've got sex education, what do they call it? Health classes, right? And parents have always been able to say, yeah, I'll teach my kids that subject myself through the prism of my family's values and morals. So parents get to opt their children out of that kind of content, right? Of course, right. Well, in Montgomery County, Maryland, a suburb of Washington, D.C., which is more left-wing and more liberal than, honestly, Santa Monica, California. It is so radical in Montgomery County, Maryland. They had injected so many sexually explicit and objectionable portions into their lesson plan that goes well beyond just sex education class. It's part of the reading curriculum. The reading curriculum in elementary school for like first and second graders had them reading books that included drag queens. And the parents were like, yeah, I don't want my kid reading that stuff. And it became untenable for the Montgomery County school system. So what did they do? Instead of removing the objectionable material from a reading class for second graders, instead they removed the opt-out for parents. So if you're a parent and your child is getting exposed with your tax dollars to that kind of garbage in second grade, in kindergarten in some cases, you have now lost the right to opt your child out of that objectionable material. That's the case that the Supreme Court just heard. Pete Buttigieg just turned it around and made it your fault, made it mom and dad's fault. That mom and dad now have a line item veto and they can sort of remove their kids from the curriculum based on their own opinions and their own, crazy right-wing religious fanatic ideas. No, it's his pals who were injecting the gay agenda into a kindergarten classroom. And his pals who don't want you as a parent to have the right to opt your child out, something that has always been a parent's right in our schools. And they don't want you to be able to do that. And you got to wonder why it's so important for them to put that content in front of your children. Why? Why is that so important? Pete, I'd love for you to answer that question. You lying, hypocritical jerk.
The idea that a teacher is supposed to keep a roster for every student and only include a different combination of students in every paragraph of every textbook is, again, against the basic idea that we hold our school systems accountable to a school board that we elect but then their job is to hire people who can be trusted to run those schools in accordance with community values.
I got to tell you something, though. This guy is more like Barack Obama than any politician I have seen since Barack Obama. Because what he just did there by creating this straw man, he even uses Obama's mannerisms and he uses Obama's little vocal tricks. You heard it. You can close your eyes and you can hear Obama saying this. This is what Obama would do. He would incredulously create these straw men that no one is arguing, and then burn down the straw men. It's like, well, we don't believe that. Nobody believes that, right? But he just said the idea that a teacher would have to keep a roster of every kid. You can hear Obama's cadence even when he does it. And no one's saying that a teacher needs to keep a roster of every child and what they opt out and what they opt out. What we're saying is stop injecting this garbage into the curriculum and we won't have a problem. If you're teaching a child how to read, how about you talk about, Dick and Jane and Spot, or their dog, and you throw a ball to them? No, you got to have a story about Heather and her two mommies. That's the problem. But this guy is good. He is very good at this, just like Obama was good. I mean, he's awful. He's terrible. He will destroy our country. But watch him, because he's very, very good at what he does. And by good at what he does, I mean he's very good at lying to you to get you to like him, to make you feel at ease, and he may even convince you to vote for him.
That's the idea. By the way, that's an idea that is richly rooted in a tradition of respect for local decision making that conservatives used to talk a lot about, and I think we all ought to be able to agree on. So, one last point, again, because this isn't just about what we're against, it's what we're for. It's not just that we are against forcing people to pay with their tax dollars for private education that they might not subscribe to or agree with. We are for using those tax dollars for excellent, first-rate public education.
Yeah, so here's the deal. He's trying to blow apart the idea of school choice, as you can tell, and that this is going to take tax dollars. Right? Here's the thing. You've had all those tax dollars for 50 years, and our schools, forgive me, are dumpster fires. And it is a perfect example of how you recognize, Pete Buttigieg, you recognize how awful our schools are, because you automatically assume that the second parents actually are empowered with the choice to take their money and move it to a different kind of school environment. They will do it. The fact that you acknowledge that if we implement school choice, tax dollars will go from your precious little laboratories where you're creating little Frankenstein woke monsters in your image and your ideological model, and they will take those tax dollars and send it to a private institution that does a better job. It's your admission that you and your party and your teachers union have utterly failed. Because guess what? If parents have a great school choice and they're empowered to make a choice, and you've got a great public school, guess what? That's the choice the parents will make. But he knows that they won't make that choice because they love their children. So he has to lie, and he has to create straw men, and he has to separate and demonize and divide. And he does it all by saying that he's the reasonable one. Oh, this guy is dangerous, my friends. He's very dangerous.
Everybody's talking, including me, talking about the jumbo jet because I'm pissed off about the jumbo jet. But I believe the most important story today is that the numbers started coming back on the budget reconciliation put forward by the congressional Republicans, which last time I checked, literally as we speak, they're marking up in committee and voting on. And it is literally a zero-sum game, because the more they do this, the less there is for that. So yes, I am against the enormous tax cuts for the rich that they are pushing through. But part of why we're against that is we're for taking those dollars and using them to make sure that nobody in this country, no child in this country goes without health insurance, to make sure that no child in this country goes hungry. We heard earlier about that USDA program that my friend and colleague, Secretary Vilsack, had to help make sure that more food goes directly from farms to people who need it. I'm for that. We could do that.
Yeah, this is
Look,
all
everybody's
the same kind of BS hype that they've been talking about for 60, 70 years. Tax cuts for the wealthy that always ends up rejuvenating the economy, and they always claim, but instead we want to use that money to be able to make sure no child goes hungry and that they have health care. Well, you've had all that money. You passed Obamacare and celebrated that. And so how is it possible that there's anyone in this country without health care right now? And it's because it's never enough. It's never enough unless they get full on Marxist socialism and complete control. And even then, they won't have enough money. But again, he's very good at presenting all of these ideas because it's just so reasonable the way he does it.
So it felt really good to step off that plane yesterday and have a look around at that terminal. That's coming along nicely. Nice job with that. It's got that new terminal smell that only a former transportation secretary can love.
By the way, I thought famously he liked riding trains all the time and not airports. But he talks about a brand new terminal that's being built at the Des Moines Airport in Iowa. That's with federal funds that were approved and spearheaded by the former transportation secretary, Pete Buttigieg. Gosh, I wonder why Pete Buttigieg, as Secretary of Transportation, would ensure that there's tax dollars freed up for a brand new airport terminal in Iowa. Because Iowa, you know, that's one of the heaviest trafficked airports, international airports on the planet. They need that kind of. Oh, maybe it was politics. Maybe it was just a gift that he used your tax dollars for so that then he can go to Iowa as the prelude to his presidential campaign. That he just buttered everybody's toast in that state. He wants their votes, and then he can stay there and say, hey, I did this. I was Secretary of the Treasury. It's not your money, Pete. It's our money. But I'm glad that we were able to give an in-kind contribution to his presidential effort.
I guess the way I would think about it is that our most important rights and freedoms are safe if and only if they apply across the board. So just like freedom of speech isn't freedom of speech if it's only for speech we agree with, right? It's why, because Voltaire said, I detest what you have to say, but I will defend to the death your right to say it, right? It is precisely with disagreeable speech that we prove that we really mean it when we say freedom of speech. Same thing with the rule of law. You know, they're saying like, oh, well, this guy, you know, he's a criminal. The whole point is that no one person, least of all, no one politician, gets to decide that you're a criminal.
All right, so he's talking about everybody's favorite Maryland man, Kilmar Abrego Garcia, the MS-13 gang member who was deported after being in the country for over a decade and being a member of a gang, being stopped by police for suspected human trafficking. And of course, his wife put in, I believe, 2 requests for restraining orders against him because he was beating her up. That Kilmar Abrego Garcia, that's the guy who he's defending. See, no matter how good these politicians are for the left, these Democrats who want to be president, no matter how good their beard is or how lousy their beard is as they grow it, they're still going to have to dot every I and cross every T to appeal to the people who are outraged that an MS-13 gang member in the country illegally for 15 years was deported. And so he can't help himself. So he has to put it in the context of due process. What did he say there about, you know, freedom of speech only works if you defend the right of people to speak and say things that you disagree with? And now he's saying the same thing about the rule of law. It has been revealed this week through a memo that was declassified by Tulsi Gabbard, the director of national intelligence, that during the Biden administration, during this man's Biden administration that he was a member of, he was a cabinet secretary for, that the FBI was directed to begin criminal investigations into American citizens over their, and I'm using their language, non-criminal activities. In other words, up until the Biden administration, the FBI was only allowed to begin to investigate an American citizen if there was credible evidence that they had committed a crime. That kind of makes sense, doesn't it? Cops shouldn't be able to just open up an investigation on you and see if there's anything there that maybe you did wrong, even though that's literally what an IRS audit is. But the FBI is not just allowed to start investigating you, right? Show me the man, I'll show you the crime. They can't do that. You have to have credible evidence that you have committed a crime to then open investigation. Biden changed all that. Biden changed all that because of January 6th, because of your opinions about the 2020 election, because of your opinions about the COVID vaccine, because of your opinions on masking policies at school board meetings. Remember the school boards that you championed there? Yeah, if parents go in and voice their objection to policies set by the school board during the pandemic, it was this guy's government, the Biden administration, that empowered the FBI to investigate those parents for domestic terrorism. This is how someone going to a Latin traditional mass at a Catholic church gets tailed by an FBI agent because this guy's government said, yeah, that's disconcerting non-criminal activity. So it's okay. Go ahead and investigate it. Search it. This is a story. It didn't get a whole lot of coverage, of course. We covered it town hall. John Solomon broke it at Just the News, and Tulsi Gabbard has declassified this memo. So forgive me all of your lip service about being concerned about the rule of law and whether the laws are being adjudicated evenly or not, or fairly or not, when you're ready to die on the hill of a gang member from a foreign country who lived here illegally. Because it was your administration that investigated innocent American citizens, not Salvadoran citizens who weren't so innocent. And one other thing, as he goes through this entire diatribe that you're about to hear about due process is necessary, viewers of this channel know, since we interviewed at length for about an hour an immigration judge. Here's what due process is for somebody who's in the country illegally. This is the due process, okay? The judge says, did you enter the country legally or illegally? And then the individual says, I entered the country illegally. And the judge says, okay, then you get deported. That's the due process. That's the beginning, middle, and end of the due process. And I assure you, our little Maryland man down in the prison in El Salvador, he had much more than that. He had plenty of due process. But go ahead, Pete. Die on that hill. Let's hear it. Make sure you please all those Democrats in Iowa that you have to please to get the nomination.
Who decides? We have a process. We have laws. That's what due process is. You're not a criminal because the head of the government of the country you live in says you're a criminal. Then, if that is the way it works, we are not a nation of laws. The whole Constitution points to a way of making sure that we give people that due process, that we count on that due process. And it can involve, for those who are involved in law enforcement and the judicial system here, it involves probable cause and a jury of your peers. I didn't go to law school. I'm not a lawyer. You shouldn't have to be to know that due process is afforded to everybody, because it is through that due process that our society can make decisions, including challenging decisions about what happens to you if you are in fact held to be in violation of the law. As ironically happened to the president himself when he went through probable cause, due process, judge, jury, all that. He got due process. So should everybody else. That's how I think about it.
Yeah, that's how he thinks about it. All right, enough with him. But I just want to remind you, he's running for president. He is very good at what he does, which is lie to you, lie to voters. The media absolutely love him, and he's going to raise hundreds of millions of dollars, because a huge part of the funding and campaign finance infrastructure for the Democrats comes from Hollywood. Comes from Silicon Valley. And there are some intangibles that Buttigieg possesses that those communities really adore. And so they're going to champion this guy. And I want you armed, and I want you ready to see through all of his bullshit. Yeah, that's right. I ended the segment with a beep. And I'm not going to apologize for it. Now, if you like that kind of content, you're going to love everything you see at townhall.com. Town Hall Media, that's the organization that produces this show. And I want to give a quick, and it's very quick plug to townhallvip.com. You go there, you become a VIP member, you use my name at checkout, and you get 50% off. You're going to get a first look at a lot of our content, including the great documentary that we just released last week, featuring yours truly and Katie Pavlich. You're also going to get an ad-free experience on all of our sites. That's Town Hall, Hot Air, Red State, PJ Media, Twitchy, and Bearing Arms. Plus, you're going to get an ad-free experience. Did I already say that? And you're going to get exclusive content on all of those sites only for VIP members. And you'll help us out and continue the work that we do. So go to townhallvip.com, use my name, Larry, at checkout to get 50% off. Thank you very much. You know, the media is really concerned about their lack of access to the Trump White House, even though they have more access than they've ever had, really, in the history of the media covering a president. But they're really upset that, you know, he's opened up access to other outlets like ours and Daily Wire and Daily Signal and, well, all the dailies, really. That they're really angry at the Trump administration because Trump says mean things about the press. And they constantly say that he's some kind of threat to a free press in America. You know what's a real threat to the free press in America? When the press in America ignore significant, important, worldwide, impactful stories. You're pretty plugged in on the news. How much coverage did you see in the last 18 hours of President Trump's speech in Saudi Arabia addressing the Arab nations? Not much. You probably heard quite a bit about a big 747 from Qatar. And you probably heard a whole lot about Jake Tapper's book. But what about this speech that Donald Trump delivered? Because it could very well be one of the most important foreign policy speeches in the last several decades, delivered by a president who is reshaping America's stance in the planet and in the Middle East. It really offers an insight into how Trump sees America's role on the planet and how he believes, rightly or wrongly, long-time bloody conflicts can be resolved. Not through nation building, not through demanding democracy from cultures who aren't really ready for it and don't really understand it. No, he believes the real freedom ultimately comes from the one thing we all have in common. We all want to make a buck. At least it seems that's how Donald Trump approaches it. Take a look at what he had to say yesterday.
Transformations have been unbelievably remarkable. Before our eyes, a new generation of leaders is transcending the ancient conflicts of tired divisions of the past and forging a future where the Middle East is defined by commerce, not chaos, where it exports technology, not terrorism, and where people of different nations, religions, and creeds are building cities together, not bombing each other out of existence. We don't want that. And it's crucial for the wider world to note this great transformation has not come from Western interventionists or flying people in beautiful planes giving you lectures on how to live and how to govern your own affairs. No, the gleaming marvels of Riyadh and Abu Dhabi were not created by the so-called nation builders, neocons, or liberal nonprofits like those who spent trillions and trillions of dollars failing to develop Kabul, Baghdad, so many other cities. Instead, the birth of a modern Middle East has been brought by the people of the region themselves, the people that are right here, the people that have lived here all their lives, developing your own sovereign countries, pursuing your own unique visions and charting your own destinies in your own way. It's really incredible what you've done. In the end, the so-called nation builders wrecked far more nations than they built, and the interventionists were intervening in complex societies that they did not even understand themselves. They told you how to do it, but they had no idea how to do it themselves. Peace, prosperity, and progress ultimately came not from a radical rejection of your heritage, but rather from embracing your national traditions and embracing that same heritage that you love so dearly.
That, of course, the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia. So that's something, right? And again, I don't mean to just reduce it down to that simplistic term, but I think that it is an accurate read here. He said, listen, and again, understand, this is from Donald Trump. This is Donald Trump, the entrepreneur, the businessman, the billionaire, the real estate developer, the entertainment figure. He goes to Saudi Arabia, he goes to, Abu Dhabi, he goes to the Middle East, and he sees what's working. He sees success, he sees prosperity, he sees gleaming towers and buildings. This is Donald Trump's perspective on what works, right? And he says, listen, you guys want to fix the problems you've got here. Focus on developing. Focus on actually making money, commerce, free trade, free markets, and eventually you'll have these great cities. You'll have this great prosperity, and you'll be too busy living a happy, prosperous, wealthy life to kill each other. It may be simplistic. It may be naive. It may be dead on right. It's certainly, as he just put it, a stark contrast to what failed in the Middle East. He says these guys for decades tried to build up Kabul and look at the failure, whereas you guys have been able to build these cities on your own, not with foreign interventionists, not with nation building. You've built your own nation, not because the West told you how to do it and what hoops you had to jump through to do it. You did it. You built that. And we want to be a partner with that, is his argument. Now, I think, sadly, there are way too many leaders in that region who don't care about that stuff. They'd be happy living in a mud hut if they can murder the people they believe are their mortal enemies. And that needs to be in the mix here, the reality of some of the cultures that we're dealing with. But at the same time, this is Donald Trump entering a new phase of international relations in a very complicated part of the world with a very new approach. We're not going to tell you how to nation build. We're not going to tell you how to choose your leaders. We're not going to force democracy on you. It works for us, but maybe it doesn't work for you. But we're going to be here to support your peaceful intentions as long as they remain peaceful. So let's get a little bit more from this speech, because, again, I know you didn't get it elsewhere, and it's pretty important.
In recent years, far too many American presidents have been afflicted with the notion that it's our job to look into the souls of foreign leaders and use U.S. policy to dispense justice for their sins. They loved using our very powerful military, and now it's really the most powerful it's ever been. We just are getting a budget approved, $1 trillion, highest budget we've ever had in history for military, $1 trillion. And we're getting the greatest missiles, the greatest weapons. And, I hate to do it, but you have to do it because we believe in peace through strength. You have to have the strength. Otherwise, bad things could happen. But hopefully, we'll never have to use any of those weapons. Seems to be an awfully big waste of money if you're never going to use them. But hopefully, we'll never have to use them, because the destructive power of some of those weapons are like nobody's seen before. I believe it is God's job to sit in judgment, my job to defend America, and to promote the fundamental interest of stability, prosperity, and peace. That's what I really want to do.
All right, so I love this clip more than anything, and I want to break it down real fast, because first of all, I love the fact that he goes off prompter and goes off on this tangent as he's talking about peace, and he's talking about how, hey, it's not our job to tell you how you should live your life. It's not our job to sit in judgment of you. You do your thing, and then he goes off script for a minute and says, although we do have the most powerful military on the planet, and I just approved a $1 trillion budget, and we've got missiles that, it would be a shame for us to have to use them. But we can if we have to, because we believe in peace through strength, but we lead with peace, but we've got the strength and no one can match us. And just so you know, as you start working these issues out, if we have to, we can flatten you all and turn your desert into glass. I think one of the greatest little off-script ad libs, just sort of, oh, by the way. But then he finished with this.
Like nobody's seen before. I believe it is God's job to sit in judgment, my job to defend America, and to promote the fundamental interest of stability, prosperity, and peace. That's what I really want to do.
It's God's job to judge, and my job to defend America and promote stability and peace. Okay. That's good. Again, I'm on board with this approach. I worry about some of the countries in that region who don't really give a crap about any of our values and any of those things. I know this because they've been at war with each other for centuries. A little bit more.
If the responsible nations of this region seize this moment, put aside your differences and focus on the interests that unite you, then all of humanity will soon be amazed at what they will see right here in this geographic center of the world. It really is. It's like a center of the world and the spiritual heart of its greatest faiths.
It's an interesting turn of phrase, the center of the world, because if you look at a map the way we all look at, a two-dimensional map, the Middle East does end up being in the center of the map. Of course, it's not the center of the world per se, but it's a nice turn of phrase and good for his speechwriters for doing that, and also giving a hat tip to Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, all having their spiritual homes right there in that region. He is calling on, as he put it, what was the word he used? Responsible nations?
If the responsible nations of this region...
The responsible nations. And that's critically important because by pointing out that some of the nations in this region are responsible nations, probably most of them represented right there in that hall, it's also an indication that some of them aren't so responsible. And in a minute, he's going to turn to Iran specifically. But here's a little bit more of this speech.
In recent weeks, following repeated attacks on American ships and freedom of navigation in the Red Sea, the United States military launched more than 1,100 strikes on the Houthis in Yemen. As a result, the Houthis agreed to stop. They said, we don't want this anymore. It's the first time you've heard that from them, too. They're tough. They're fighters. But just days ago, we were asked to cease targeting commercial. They were not going to be targeting commercial ships in any way, shape, or form, anything American. And they were very happy that we stopped. But we had 52 days of thunder and lightning like they've never seen before. This was a swift, ferocious, decisive, and extremely successful use of military force. Not that we wanted to do it, but they were shooting down ships. They were shooting at you. They were shooting at Saudi Arabia. We don't want them shooting at Saudi Arabia if that's okay. So we hit them hard. We got what we came for, and then we got out.
That's the most important part of that whole thing, which is, listen, you mess with us, you're going to feel it, and we're going to hurt you. We're going to punch back. We're going to wipe out your capabilities until you scream uncle. But then we're going to leave. We're not going to stay. And again, I think that that's welcome to a lot of the people in this region after over 20 years of occupation in Iraq. Then he turned to Iran. And this is critically important because, again, you don't get this in a lot of your news analysis on cable because, well, they're too busy talking about Trump's emolument clause and a Qatar 747 and what have you. The Saudis and the Iranians hate each other. The Saudis, and they're also two different ethnic peoples. I want to say racial peoples, but they're different ethnicities. Iranians are Persians. The Saudi Arabians are Arabs. Most of the countries in that region represent the Arab ethnicity. The Iranians are Persian. There's a lot of bad blood there that goes in not only how they interpret and practice the Islamic faith, but also just in terms of control and ethnic hatred in the region over whatever their plot of sand happens to be. A strong Iran is bad for Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia would sooner make a peace agreement with Israel if it hurts Iran, and the Trump administration is counting on that. A lot of the countries over there don't want Iran to have anything near a nuclear weapon, and in fact, they'd be happy if the entire regime were overthrown in Tehran right now. They're not allowed to say it out loud, but it is exactly what they believe. And that's huge leverage that Trump can use. And, well, you'll hear what he has to say here.
Yet I'm here today not merely to condemn the past chaos of Iran's leaders, but to offer them a new path and a much better path toward a far better and more hopeful future. As I've shown repeatedly, I am willing to end past conflicts and forge new partnerships for a better and more stable world even if our differences may be very profound, which obviously they are in the case of Iran. I have never believed in having permanent enemies. I am different than a lot of people think. I don't like permanent enemies, but sometimes you need enemies to do the job, and you have to do it right. Enemies get you motivated. In fact, some of the closest friends of the United States of America are nations we fought wars against in generations past, and now they're our friends and our allies.
Interesting, a little side note there as he sort of wandered off script again. I would jump in and say, you know, in terms of he doesn't want any permanent enemies except Rosie O'Donnell. I think that one's there to stay. And he makes a good point. Some of our greatest allies, our closest allies, England, Canada, Germany, Japan, fought wars against them. We have a good relationship, but he specifically is offering Iran a way out. Here's the thing. Iran won't take the peaceful way. It's just not in them. They don't care. They never have. They're not going to make peace with the great Satan, which is what they've called us for decades. And he is laying the groundwork here for these Middle Eastern nations, these Arab nations who don't like Iran either. You know, if he comes in there saber rattling and saying Iran's got to get in line and they got to do things our way or we're done. No, he's saying, listen, I'm not here to dredge up things in the past. I'm willing, even with Iran, even with these guys, I'm willing to have a deal with them. I'm here to make a deal. You may have been our enemy before, but look, we can be friends with our enemies. We've done it in the past. We can do it again. We're willing, giving you every opportunity. Let's make a deal. And people see that. And my instinct was, oh, well, that's wrong. That's naive. That's stupid. He's got to be, you know, no. He's just laying the predicate so that when things turn sour with Iran, and they will turn very bad with Iran, these countries are going to either join Trump and support the United States against Iran, or more probably, they'll just stay quiet on the sidelines. But he's giving them political cover here. He's giving them political cover to say, listen, so the Saudis and the Yemenis and the Kuwaitis and all these other countries, Jordan, they can say, listen, he tried. He tried it. This is not his fault. He didn't come in here, you know, like we've seen from American presidents with all this screaming rhetoric against Iran. I'd like to think that that's what's going on here, because Trump is a very smart man. And based on everything he said about Iran in the past, he knows how this is going to end up. But he's making sure that he's got allies when things go bad. All right, a little bit more from this speech and we'll wrap things up.
My preference will always be for peace and partnership whenever those outcomes can be achieved. Always. It's always going to be that way. Only a fool would think otherwise.
That's right. And that's, again, this is sort of the pragmatic summation of Trump's view of this region, and I think of international affairs in general, which is like, why are we wasting our time with fighting and yelling and building missiles and rockets? We could all be making money right now. We could all be building stuff and selling stuff and getting wealthy and building beautiful buildings and beautiful resorts and playing golf and enjoying life. Why not do that instead? If you push us, we will push back 10 times as hard, and you will not be happy with the outcome, but you don't have to do that. Let's just set it aside and let's everybody have a prosperous future. That's sort of what he's saying here, and it just might work. My question for you is, why didn't you see much about this speech anywhere else? Is it because the media is just sort of too stupid to spend time on international affairs? Is it because they're too busy trying to find a scandal and scream outrage about Donald Trump? Is it because they fear having their viewers actually see Donald Trump on the international stage look respected, well-liked, and make sense? Or is it because they put so much, they've invested so much time and energy and emotion and, yes, money into convincing themselves and their viewers that Trump is a Hitlerian fascist, that to see him actually act like a Churchillian diplomat would so counter the narrative that they've already built about him that they would just rather ignore the news than report the news? It's probably all of the above, but that's what you saw transpire over the last 18 hours since he gave this speech. Very few outlets paid it any attention Or maybe they played a clip or two and then they moved on without giving it the analysis it deserves. It is the most important international speech Donald Trump has made in his political career, and one of the most important speeches by an American president in the Middle East in history. And, well, one of the networks spent some time on it. Actually, two of them did. I saw a lot of discussion on Newsmax. And here's my friend and colleague, Katie Pavlich from Town Hall last night on the 5.
Has unfinished business from the first term, which is making sure more countries come into the Abraham Accords. And he talked about this extensively in his speech. As you mentioned, Jesse, exporting technology, not terrorism, commerce, not chaos, people from all religions and creeds building cities together, not bombing each other out of existence. So he's bringing peace to the region by bringing business to the region. And you've seen this happening with the negotiations they had with Saudi Arabia. He talked about the UAE, how they're building up. He then contrasted that with Iran, who he explained has destroyed their economy because all they do is export terrorism. And he gave them a choice. So he's trying to bring more countries into this. He also said that he wanted Saudi Arabia to come into the Abraham Accords, which is really code for saying, you need to normalize with Israel so you guys can share technology and we can all get along and fight your real enemies and not be, trying to get inside these wars all the time. So that will help the region. It will help families in that region. It will also help the American people and the entrepreneurial spirit we have to work with other countries around the world to export our technologies and to work together. So I thought it was really interesting. And if he's going to bring people into the fold through commerce and discussion, while also allowing them to have their own cultures and do their own thing, then I think that would be good for the country and for the president.
And for the world. I'll finish that clip for her. Yeah, listen, Katie and I have a lot in common, not just that we both work at Town Hall, but we're also both incredibly attractive people. But one other important thing that we have in common is that we are stalwart, just 100% supporters of our closest ally on the planet, Israel. And I know that Katie cares deeply about the Israeli people and the future of that country. And if she's okay and supportive of this approach that Trump is taking, then I think I'm in the right place on this thing too, because that is the one danger. The one danger is making too good of friends with the enemies of our very good friend Israel is a dangerous proposition. But as of now, it seems like this is the right approach because we can all do business together over there. The Abraham Accords proved that already. Trump proved that with the Abraham Accords by having Arab nations who had never even acknowledged Israel's right to exist agree to normalize their relations. And now, 4 years later, 5 years later, those relationships are strong and prosperous. So good on you, Katie Pavlich. Also, one other clip from, actually, this is from this morning, I think. This is just quintessential Trump, and it's not necessarily directly related to his approach in the Middle East, but it kind of is, because this is Trump at his most natural, finest in these settings. Only he can do this, and I think you'll enjoy it.
The job you've done is second to none. You look at this, it's so beautiful. As a construction person, I'm seeing perfect marble. This is what they call perfecto. And just a great job you've done. And what a beautiful place. And we appreciate those camels. I haven't seen camels like that in a long time. And with some greeting, we appreciate it.
You got perfect marble here. We call it perfecto. And I love those camels. Haven't seen camels like that in a long time. That's something else. I would only wish he would add to the Emir of Qatar or whatever his title is. Yeah, great stuff. You've done a great job. Stop celebrating Hamas. Stop giving them safe haven. Stop giving Hamas money. Thanks for the 747. I don't think I can take it. But stop with the Hamas. And then we'll be friends, okay? Okay? He may have said that when the cameras were turned off. I hope he did. All right, that's it for today's show. Thank you very much for watching. Hey, Captain Patriot, $2 super check. Good morning, Larry. Good morning to you, Captain. Is that an Alabama shirt? Roll Tide. Well, I'm more of an Auburn guy. War Eagle. Thank you for the $2. I appreciate it. Hey, do you like my new addition to the set? That's my name tag. That's the name tag they had set up for me at the White House when we were at the White House. I think it looks nice. Buy my book. Don't buy Jake Tapper's book. My book. Shameless Liars. You can get it at Amazon paperback, hardcover, and Audible, the audiobook narrated by the author. Thanks for watching today. We'll be back tomorrow, same time, same place. Oh, I'm on Newsmax tonight. If you want to watch me, I'll be on the Chris Plant's Right Squad at 10 p.m. tonight, I think, with Mercedes Schlapp and Matt Foldy. We got a good team going there. I'm doing that weekly now. So check me out on Newsmax tonight. In the meantime, we'll see you right back here tomorrow. My name is Larry O'Connor, and you can call me Larry.